No Jumper is reporting Tory Lanez has been found guilty on all 3 counts. Wow. We're gonna make sure other sources have confirmed the same because they reported something before that was whatever. Let's see what James Quealy says. By the way, I did say before, if Tory Lanez is found guilty of assault with a semi-automatic firearm, he would get found guilty of all 3. It was either he's going to beat it all 3-0 or he was going to go down all 3. Because based on how these charges were set up, you're either going to believe one narrative or the other. And yeah, so if you believe the narrative that he shot Meg, you're going to probably agree with the fact that he had possession of the weapon, of a concealed weapon in a vehicle. That's one of the charges. Then he also grossly, he was negligent in discharging that weapon as well. So it is what it is. Let me see. I'm trying to get other people to co-sign it. I'm trying to get other people. Right now, only No Jumper, I'm seeing it. I'm only seeing No Jumper say it. Oh, here we go. Here we go. A jury has convicted Tory Lanez of all 3 charges for the 2020 shooting of Meg Thee Stallion. A crazy and downright scary scene in the courtroom as his father and stepmother screamed about wicked injustice. Tory Lanez's father stood up, guessed, and screamed, "This is a wicked system." He screamed at the prosecutors that they're evil and they know exactly what they did here. His stepmother stood up, screaming and yelling. Father was yelling about Rock Nation. Hey, chat, let me tell you this. By the way, this is very unexpected for me. I will tell you though, at the beginning of this trial, at the beginning of when this all started, I've always just said we should wait until a verdict was actually presented. And just like I told you, obviously I don't know the outcome. I did know the outcome. Whether it was him being innocent or him being found guilty, of course he's going to probably appeal. This is an outcome that we all have to accept. This is an outcome we all got to accept. I'm going to be honest with you. All right? So I'm not going to be the nigga who's going to be like, oh my God. No, I'm going to be the person who said, listen, those jurors who were in court, granted, we have gotten a lot of the information supposedly that was presented in court, but for whatever reason, they have all concluded that he is guilty. And I have to say that this is an opinion we got to respect. Not an opinion, but this is a verdict we have to respect. Let me just see other people who are going to probably echo the same thing. It looks like that's what it is. Let me see. We're going to probably see it very shortly. TMZ should have it almost immediately. Yep, here we go. Found guilty of shooting Meg Thee Stallion and facing likely deportation. Tory Lanez is guilty of shooting Meg Thee Stallion in the foot. In 2020, a jury has decided. The verdict came in Friday, just before the holidays, where a group of LA jurors found the Canadian rapper guilty of all 3 charges against him: felony, negligent discharge of a firearm, assault with a semi-automatic weapon, and carrying a loaded and unregistered firearm. After the verdict was read, several of his family members shouted, calling the jurors evil. Tory was filmed entering the court before the verdict was read, telling cameras his spirits were high. Tory now faces more than 22 years in prison, which will be determined during a sentencing at a later date. Sources connected to the case tells us Tory lawyers were in touch with immigration officials before the guilty verdict, and we're told that they're being informed that there's a strong likelihood he will be forced to leave the country. This marks the conclusion of a wild 2 weeks in court, which saw a handful of witnesses take the stand to recount what they have saw or what they say happened on that fateful night. Meg herself obviously testified, squarely pointing the finger at Tory as the sole shooter. This marks the conclusion of a wild 2 weeks in court, which saw a handful of witnesses take the stand to recount what they have saw or what they say happened on that fateful night. Meg herself obviously testified, squarely pointing the finger at Tory as a sole shooter. Oh, as a shooter. She says she saw Tory with a gun, explaining she remembers him firing at her from a Cadillac Escalade, and claims he shouted, "Dance, bitch, dance." Meg Thee Stallion also testified Tory offered her $1 million to keep quiet. By the way, they didn't bring him up on bribery charges, but that was a testimony, or that was the allegation. Meg was called out by the defense for several. Oh, sorry, my bad. For several items. Here we go. For several items, including the fact that she initially wasn't forthright about having an intimate relationship with Tory, and that she initially lied to police about how her feet had gotten injured. The defense also tried to target Meg's ex best friend Kelsey as a shooter, and the reason that she might have shot her was because of alleged creeping behind her back with guys like Ben Simmons and the baby and Tory himself, a revelation that apparently sparked a major argument among all three in the car. What happened in the car was a major source of contention during the trial. While Meg had one version of the events, Kelsey seemed to have a different story, albeit with a very spotty memory on the stand that created a stop-and-go recounting under oath. What she did definitively testify on the stand. She wasn't the one that shot Meg, but she wasn't willing to go as far to say as Tory did. But remember, prosecutors were eventually able to get the green light to play a prior interview she'd given in September, and in that recording, she said that Tory shot Meg. That might have been the icing on the cake right there. It's probably that interview, I'm going to be honest. Other witnesses took the stand, but none of them were as consequential as Meg and Kelsey, including the guy who supposedly saw the two women fighting from his balcony. Ultimately, he was not definitive about who he saw fire the gun. Physical evidence in the case wasn't that strong. There was gun residue found on both Kelsey and Tory, and inconclusive DNA on the gun itself. Tory never took the stand, and neither did the driver that night, Jaquan Smith. Aside from the cops and a witness to Kylie Jenner's party, that's EJ, that preceded all this, it really boiled down to Kelsey and Meg. In the end, the jury obviously sided with the prosecutor. As for the court of public opinion, the jury's still very much out. People certainly took sides on social media and on traditional media too. But now, it's unclear if their allegiances will change. A long and twisted journey finally fucking over. People, I keep telling you, I told you my intent. My intent is to accept the verdict that was given. Gotta accept it. You get what I mean? Did I think there was going to be a different, did I think it was going to be a different outcome? Yes. Definitely thought it was going to be a different outcome. You get what I mean? But if you ask me why this verdict is here, clearly the jury took into account what Meg said and her being the victim. And even though you or me might say, well, she lied before. Sorry. Oh, she lied before about this, that, and third. The jury found her credible enough to say, we're going to side with her. Kelsey's, her testimony was all over the place. If they use her testimony, they probably didn't use what she said in court. They used what she said in September to the prosecutors. Hold on. I believe Tory is going to be remanded immediately. He was out on bail, and he was let off house arrest for the sake of the case, that he could have a good chance to sit with his attorneys and do what he got to do to get his defense in. You know what I mean? To prepare for this case. He was always on some type of bond, and I believe he should be remanded immediately. And after him being remanded, they're going to go towards sentencing. Unfortunately, he's going to spend, I believe, unless something else happens. I don't know if his lawyer could fucking convince the judge to hey, listen, just put him on house arrest till sentencing. But I could imagine they would be like, hey, let's remand him now, right? Posting to Instagram. I'm sorry, guys. Chat. It's over. It's over. It's over. We're probably going to be discussing this, and, we're all going to have our opinions for